Coming up in our newscast tonight. On National Police Day, President Moon Jae-in addresses those serving in the force. He urges the police to pay attention to the socially weak and improve fairness and expertise of investigations. Seoul, Pyongyang and the UN command complete the process of disarming the joint security area in accordance with the inter-Korean military agreement signed last month. Starting Friday, the three sides will carry out a two-day joint inspection of the area to ensure complete disarmament of the JSA. To mark Emperor Gojong's edict on October 25, 1900, that the Dokdo Islands are attached to Ulleungdo Island, this day is celebrated with various events here in the nation. A civic group prepared plans to raise international awareness about Korea's easternmost territory and denounce Japan's distorted sovereignty claims to the islands. News Center begins now. It's 8 p.m. here in Korea, live from our studio in Seoul. This is Arirang News Center. Welcome to our program. I'm Daniel Choi. It's National Police Day here in Korea. To mark the occasion, President Moon Jae-in spoke to those serving in the force. Among other things, he reminded them of the importance of being fair and respecting human rights. Shin Se-min has our top story.
Celebrating National Police Day, President Moon Jae-in urged some 15,000 police officers nationwide to feel the pain suffered by the weak and listen to their voices.
경찰관 한 명 한 명이 국민이 내민 손을 굳게 잡을 때 민주주의와 평화는 더 굳건해질 것입니다.
He pressed the police to be fair in their investigations.
지난 6월 정부가 발표한 검경 수사권 조정안은 경찰에 대한 국민의 신뢰를 바탕으로 한 것입니다. 경찰은 수사의 공정성과 전문성을 획기적으로 높여야 합니다.
The president asked the police to come up with measures to better protect human rights through the entire investigation process, saying that keeping the peace and protecting people's basic rights are the same. He also highlighted the importance of tackling crimes against females, saying the fear that females go through in their daily lives has not been resolved, and ordering the police to make sure justice is served against those who commit crimes that destroy females' lives. Thanking the police for their work in ensuring the safe running of the 2018 Winter Olympic Games in Pyeongchang and Inter-Korean Summit in Panmunjom in April, President Moon repeated his campaign promise of expanding the police force by at least 20,000 members before the end of his term. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, at the Demilitarized zone, Seoul has discovered what are presumably two sets of remains from the Korean War. They were found while clearing landmines from the area ahead of a project next year in which the two Koreas will search for their war dead together. The nation's defense ministry announced that two sets of remains along with one South Korean identification tag with a soldier's name on it were found at Arrowhead Hill, or Hwasalmori Goji in Korean, one of the war's fiercest battlefields. They are the first remains to be discovered since minesweeping work began at the start of this month. The area will be searched for remains starting next April in a pilot project, the first of its kind agreed upon by the chiefs of the South and North Korean militaries last month. The two Koreas and the UN command have completed disarming the joint security area. After the three sides conduct an on-site inspection, visitors will be able to freely cross the military demarcation line. Kan Young-woo explains further.
People from the two Koreas will soon be able to cross the border at the joint security area for the first time in over 4 decades. The two Koreas and the UN command finished the process of disarming the JSA in the Demilitarized zone on Thursday afternoon. In accordance with the inter-Korea military agreement signed last month, the three sides have removed guard posts and firearms from the JSA, hoping to reduce tensions and prevent accidental clashes. Starting Friday, the two Koreas and the UN command will carry out a 2-day joint inspection to ensure the complete disarmament of the JSA. After a pilot period and more detailed measures to prevent defectors are implemented, not only Korean visitors, but also foreign tourists will be allowed to cross the military demarcation line between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. The two Koreas will station 35 soldiers, including 5 officers from each side for surveillance purposes, but they will only wear yellow armbands that read Panmunjom Civil Police, and they won't carry firearms. The South and North conducted a 20-day joint demining project at the JSA from October 1st. The two Koreas and the UN command verified the clearance of landmines on Monday at their second three-way meeting. Since 2 American soldiers were killed by North Korean personnel in the JSA in 1976, crossing over the military demarcation line in the area had been strictly forbidden. 간영우, Arirang News.
The National Assembly's annual audit of government ministries and state-funded agencies is almost at its end. Today, lawmakers engaged in a heated debate over the Moon administration's economic policies, especially the ones on job creation. Kim Mo-kyun has the latest from Parliament.
Under the spotlight in Thursday's parliamentary audit is once again the Ministry of Economy and Finance, as rival parties question the Moon administration's latest policies on job creation announced the previous day. Lawmakers from the opposition parties criticized the government's goal to create 59,000 jobs, saying it's only a temporary fix that creates short-term work. Lawmakers with the ruling party fought back, claiming that the short-term jobs are just part of the government's policies, and stressed that they're aimed at boosting investment and pursuing innovative growth. Meanwhile, in the audit of the Supreme Prosecutor's Office, lawmakers are questioning prosecutors about their investigation into an abuse of power scandal in the judiciary. That involves the Supreme Court and its former Chief Justice Yang Seung-tae, who allegedly sought to use high-profile trials as leverage in possible negotiations with the former Park Geun-hye administration. The ruling party urged prosecutors to conduct a thorough investigation into the case, while the main opposition party accused the government of political retaliation against the previous conservative government. The floor leaders of the nation's 4 major parties, excluding the main opposition Liberty Korea Party, announced later in the day that they will push for a motion to set up a special panel of judges who can pursue a fair and transparent investigation. Elsewhere, the Defense Committee and Culture Committee held on-site inspections of some regional departments. However, due to a boycott by the main opposition party over the government's ratification of the Pyongyang Declaration, the Foreign Affairs and Unification Committee and the Transport Committee had to either cancel their on-site inspections or go ahead with only some members present. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
The government unveiled a list of private preschools that are involved in financial irregularities such as accounting fraud. The discoveries were made during an audit carried out after a lawmaker brought the issue to surface earlier this month. After a public outcry, the government and the ruling party laid out some measures to deal with the issue. Kim Min-ji outlines what they are.
Private preschools in South Korea will be slapped with hefty sanctions if they're involved in any irregularities and will be required to make their financial records transparent. It's part of measures unveiled on Thursday by the ruling Democratic Party and the Education Ministry in light of recent revelations of misconduct at some 1,900 kindergartens. A government audit showed that kindergarten principals had used preschool funds for personal expenses like insurance or phone bills and committed accounting fraud. Private kindergartens in the country receive government subsidies on top of tuition.
The government and the ruling party will deal sternly with irregularities at private kindergartens under a zero-tolerance policy. We'll also thoroughly monitor the situation so taxpayer money is used only for the children.
Private preschools will be required to adopt a state accounting system currently used at public schools known as EduFine. Although some have been reluctant because their financial records will be scrutinized, all preschools will be required to do so by 2020. The measures also include expanding enrollment at state-run preschools. The government plans to add 1,000 new kindergarten classes next year, double what it had originally planned, while aiming to achieve its goal of an enrollment ratio of 40% at state-run facilities by 2021, a year earlier than targeted. The figure currently stands at 25%. The government also vowed stronger punishments if private preschools go on collective strikes or refuse to take new students.
We will take action against anything that infringes on children's right to education. The government will not just sit and watch children and parents being negatively affected by unilateral actions. After the Fair Trade Commission's probe, there will be strict punishment for those in violation of the law.
And to ensure that blame isn't put unfairly on kindergartens that play by the rules, the government will make public their efforts so the model cases eventually create a virtuous cycle. The government said this is just the beginning and more measures will be drawn up to address shortcomings along the way. And the ruling party vowed to do all it can to ensure parliament support, whether that be by revising laws or boosting the budget. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
The nation's benchmark index, the Kospi, fell to its lowest level this year during midday trading. This comes after U.S. stocks took a dive the previous day. Ko Ryuni sheds light on the possible driving factors of this downward trend.
South Korea's main index closed substantially lower on Thursday and in midday trading hit its lowest level this year. The benchmark Kospi closed at 2063, down more than 1.6%. In the morning, the index touched 2033, the first time it's gone below the 2040 level since January last year. This is also more than 20% lower than its peak this past January, meaning the Kospi is now in a bear market. Investors were spooked after stocks on Wall Street plunged on Wednesday across the board, some wiping out all the gains they'd made this year. The Nasdaq was hit the worst, dropping nearly 4.5%, a loss of more than 329 points. It was the Nasdaq's biggest one-day slide since August 2011. The Dow Jones and the S&P 500 erased all of their gains for 2018. Investors are worried that disappointing corporate earnings for Q3 show America's trade war with China is finally affecting U.S. businesses. There are other reasons as well, like uncertainty surrounding the upcoming U.S. midterm elections and how it will affect economic policies. Others say fears that the Fed will continue to raise rates also contributed.
The profit outlook of a company can be damaged by an interest rate hike, so this might lead to a shock in the stock market.
Meanwhile, Korea's tech-heavy junior index, the Kospi, closed at just under 687, down more than 1.7%. The Korean currency closed at 1,138 won against the U.S. dollar, up more than 5 won from the previous close. Ko Ryuni, Arirang News.
Preliminary estimates from the nation's central bank show the domestic economy grew at a slower pace than expected during the third quarter. Shrinking investment is seen as a key contributor. Kim Hye-sung help us look beyond the digits.
South Korea's economy expanded 0.6% on quarter in the third quarter, on par with second quarter growth, contracting from a 1% expansion in the first. The Bank of Korea says compared to the same period last year, third quarter growth expanded by 2%, the slowest pace of growth in 9 years.
Exports and consumption led growth. Final consumption spending contributed 0.5 percentage points and exports 1.7 percentage points to GDP growth on quarter. But construction and facilities investments contribution to growth recorded a negative 1% and negative 0.4%.
Exports expanded by 3.9% in the July to September period thanks to semiconductor exports, while imports fell slightly due to a drop in machinery imports. Private consumption went up on growing purchases of non-durable goods like cosmetic goods and clothes. Government consumption rose 1.6% on higher spending in health insurance. But construction investment fell by 6.4%, mainly due to tighter housing market regulations, marking the sharpest fall since 1998. Facilities investment also dropped by around 5%.
Facilities investment fell, first because semiconductor investment is slowing down. Second, the U.S.-China trade spat has undermined investment sentiment, so companies are holding off their investment plans.
Gross domestic income edged up 0.2%, a turnaround from second quarter's negative 0.8%. The third quarter GDP data comes a week after the Bank of Korea cut its growth forecast for this year to 2.7%. To achieve that target, the economy would have to post higher than 0.82% growth in the last quarter. Kim Hye-sung, Arirang News.
For SK Hynix, quarterly sales, net profit, and operating profit all hit record highs. According to the South Korean chipmaker, its Q3 sales came in at $9.6 billion, up 41% from the same period last year. It also logged an operating profit of $5.2 billion and a net profit of $3.5 billion. SK Hynix attributed the record figures to the surge in DRAM and NAND flash chip exports. The firm plans to commercialize its second-generation DRAM chips starting 2019 and complete the development of fifth-generation NAND flash chips within this year to meet the changing demand. South Korea has become the first country to export $100 billion worth of memory chips in a year. The Trade Ministry says the record was set on Tuesday, October 16th. The closest any other country got to that feat are the United States and Japan. Each exported about $60 billion in 2000 and about $50 billion in 2007. Seoul's accomplishment comes 24 years after its chip exports passed $10 billion in 1994. Since 2008, the nation celebrated Semiconductor Day every October to commemorate that previous milestone. October 25th is Dokdo Day here in Korea. Various events are held nationwide to remember the day's historical significance and promote awareness of the country's easternmost territory. Yoon Jung-min shows us how the day was celebrated this year.
October 25th marks Dokdo Day in South Korea. On that day in 1900, Emperor Gojong of the Korean Empire officially announced Korea's jurisdiction over Dokdo Island and the nearby Ulleungdo Island in the East Sea to protect them from Japanese invasion attempts. In 2000, a civil activist group, the Party for Dokdo Protection, designated the day as Dokdo Day to show Korea's strong will to protect the territory against any illegal claims. Korea celebrates the day with events and festivals to promote public awareness on the importance of the country's easternmost territory. This year, some 150 people gathered at the National Assembly to celebrate the day. A lecture was held to promote the importance of Dokdo Island, and special awards were given to companies and citizens that have been working hard to protect the island.
In a situation where Japan is constantly making groundless claims on the island, it is very timely for all Korean citizens and students to come forward to righteously defend Dokdo Island against such claims.
To celebrate the day, the fourth Dokdo Music Festival was held in the heart of Seoul. Here at Seoul's Gwanghwamun Square, singers and orchestras belt out rousing performances for a contest focused on promoting Dokdo. This year, a total of 7 teams won the contest for their excellent representation of the theme and for their musical artistry.
I realized that we should not just neglect Dokdo Island. Instead, we should protect and love the island.
We came here all the way from Kimjae. We're all farmers, but we participated in this event to defend our territory, Dokdo Island.
The civil groups say this year's event will contribute to bringing more attention to the island. They hope such events can provide an opportunity to remember the significance of Dokdo Island. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
The nation's first vice foreign minister sat down for talks with his Japanese counterpart to discuss pending issues, including the disbanding of the controversial Reconciliation and Healing Foundation. Seoul's foreign ministry said Cho Hyun met with Tokyo's vice foreign minister Takeo Akiba, but did not elaborate further. The foundation is the result of a 2015 agreement made to compensate Korean women sexually enslaved by the Japanese military during World War II. Tokyo injected roughly $8.7 million to fund the body, but it never actually started running as many surviving victims rejected the agreement that, quote, fails to take full legal responsibility. Seoul's Minister of Gender Equality said disbanding the foundation has almost been decided and that the two sides are in the final process of discussing what to do with the fund. This year, South Korea officially designated August 14 as official Memorial Day of Comfort Women, or survivors of Japan's wartime atrocity. And this month, a meaningful art exhibition is being held in Seoul to sympathize with the victims' pain, remember the tragic history, and show support for the survivors. Lee Min-sun provides a glimpse of what to expect from Comfort Women's stories through arts.
A local artist put together over 100 pencil drawings, which resulted from the stories told by 4 victims of Japan's wartime sex slavery, also known as Comfort Women. The Seoul government and the Northeast Asian History Foundation jointly opened an art drawing exhibition titled Comfort Woman Stories Through Art in the basement of Seoul's Citizens Hall in the center of the capital city.
Because they haven't spoke or expressed their pain publicly, they had difficulties trying to express themselves through drawing, but soon after, they initiated talks and drew what they experienced without my instructions.
Through these 130 pieces of drawings, the artist hopes that viewers will come to understand Comfort Woman's courage in trying to heal from the wartime atrocities. Seoul Mayor Park Won-soon said that these efforts to remember tragic history are important as they help to prevent the same pain from happening ever again. Some of the drawings depict the moment the victims were taken away from their families as teenagers and how they were violated by Japanese soldiers.
My parents taught me a lot about comfort women, but seeing the drawings myself gives me more to think about. I hope Japan apologizes before all the comfort women pass away.
After looking at the art, visitors can write messages of hope and support for the victims and hang them on a tree to make it seem like it is blossoming. This pencil drawing art portraying stories of Comfort Woman will be on display till end of October and is open to the public for free. Lee Min-sun, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories now, Placido Domingo, one of the best tenors of our time, is back in Korea for his 7th concert in the country. He managed to hold a press conference in Seoul ahead of his performance. Our Oh Soo-young gets us better acquainted with the opera legend.
Placido Domingo, one of the greatest tenors in history, has returned to Seoul for a live performance at Tamsil Gymnasium this Friday. The renowned opera singer and conductor has prepared a dramatic set list of about 10 pieces, including acts from Wagner's Valkyrie and Dvorak's Rusalka. The 77-year-old will be joined by award-winning soprano Anna Maria Martinez for duets including Bernstein's Tonight from the musical West Side Story. He will also conduct several pieces in collaboration with Korea's Millennium Symphony Orchestra. Inspired by the Korean people's passion for opera and the country's own exquisite melodies, Domingo said in a news conference that he hopes to work on Korean music in the foreseeable future.
It is very difficult to find another country that is not a Latin country that has more beautiful songs than Korea. And it is just my time is so busy, but I still have the dream to do 1 year an album of Korean songs. The melodies that I have heard, that are unbelievable, and I have to do it.
It is Domingo's 7th concert in the country, where he is widely acclaimed for his performances as one of the 3 tenors, alongside Jose Carreras and Luciano Pavarotti. Domingo first performed in Korea in 1991, and many speculated that his 2016 concert would be his last on the peninsula, given his age. However, his surprise return has sparked much excitement, and the opera living legend says he hopes to continue his singing career for at least the next 3 years. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Time to turn to Michelle Bach at the Weather Center for the updates you need. Michelle, I hear it's going to be a very wet Friday.
That's right, Daniel. Starting tomorrow, rain will start falling in the morning, expected to start from the west side of the peninsula, and eventually it will spread nationwide by the afternoon. Between 10 and 40 millimeters of precipitation will fall over in Seoul, Gyeonggi-do, and also Chungcheongnam provinces, while less amount is expected in the rest of the country. Now, tomorrow's rain will be a loud one for some regions, as there will be chances of thunder and lightning as well. There will also be strong winds, so you might feel even colder than it actually is. The neighboring capital cities like Beijing will be windy as well, but it's only going to be cloudy over there, while Tokyo can expect a mild autumn weather. The morning lows are going to be 3 to 4 degrees higher than today, though, with Seoul beginning the morning at 12 degrees Celsius, Daegu and Gyeongju at 9 and 8 degrees. Now, Seoul barely reaches up to 16 degrees during the day, while southern regions will still make it up into the low 20s. Now, more autumn showers are expected for the central region as well between Sunday and Monday. And by next week, morning lows will even make it down to 3 degrees. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for you in tonight's edition of Arirang News Center. As always, thanks for staying with us.